When we look at people suffering from chronic fatigue syndrome or severe burnout, we often find astonishing parallels. These are rarely people who've taken the easy path. Quite the opposite. What we often see is strong perfectionism, an enormous sense of duty bordering on self-sacrifice, and an inner imperative, be strong, never give up. Many sufferers are masters at avoiding conflict and suppressing their own emotions in order to maintain harmony, a phenomenon also known as alexithymia, the inability to truly perceive or articulate one's own feelings. CFS is therefore often not the beginning of suffering, but its dramatic endpoint. It's the collapse after years of relentless functioning. The physical symptoms, the crushing fatigue, the pain, the cognitive dysfunction are no coincidence. They are the desperate expression of an internal conflict the psyche can no longer carry. The body takes over. It reacts because the psyche is no longer allowed to feel. To understand this pattern, psychology offers a helpful concept, the superego. Think of it as our inner judge or moral compass, shaped by internalized rules and expectations from upbringing and culture. For many sufferers, this superego has become a relentless driver. It whispers or shouts things like, "Pull yourself together. Don't be a burden. Weakness is not an option."
These beliefs run automatically and create a constant internal pressure. In Freud's model, the ego must mediate between the tyrannical superego, the instincts, and reality. But when that mediator is constantly overruled, it leads to intense guilt, self-loathing, and an unresolvable internal conflict. The idea that repressed impulses and an overly strict conscience can make us sick isn't new. Various thinkers have put it into words. Friedrich Nietzsche warned that the slave morality and constant guilt erode the vitality of the human being. Someone who endlessly self-controls and moralizes loses their most vital energies, an early description of what we might today call burnout or CFS. The body psychotherapist Wilhelm Reich spoke of the body armor. He observed that repressed emotions like anger, grief, or desire manifest as chronic muscle tension. This armor restricts aliveness and, over time, leads to physical dysfunction and disease. And physician Gabor Mate, in his book When the Body Says No, summarizes it in modern terms. People who can't say no, who constantly strive to meet internal or external expectations, are more likely to develop chronic illness. Illness becomes the body's last resort to set a boundary the person could not set themselves. What psychology describes as inner conflict also has clear neurobiological roots. The polyvagal theory, developed by Stephen Porges, offers a compelling model. It outlines three hierarchical systems within our autonomic nervous system. 1. The ventral vagal system, social engagement. This is the newest part of our nervous system. When active, we feel safe, connected, and calm. We're open to contact and cooperation. This is the biological state for healing and regeneration. 2. The sympathetic nervous system, fight and flight. When danger arises, this system kicks in. It mobilizes energy. The heart races, muscles tense. This is the state of doing, of performing, of being perpetually on, the mode many sufferers maintain for years. 3. The dorsal vagal system, freeze and collapse. This is our oldest survival strategy. When fight or flight are no longer possible or the energy is depleted, this emergency mechanism activates. It leads to immobilization, shutdown. Blood pressure and heart rate drop. There is dissociation, numbness, and that very paralyzing fatigue so typical of CFS. Burnout or CFS collapse is often a plunge from a chronically overactive sympathetic state straight into dorsal vagal shutdown. The system is no longer flexible. It flips from one extreme to the other. But where does this merciless superego come from?
Its roots often lie in childhood, closely tied to early attachment experiences. Experiences of emotional neglect, constant criticism, or having to take on adult responsibilities too early, a phenomenon known as parentification, create insecure attachment patterns. A child in such an environment learns survival strategies that later become toxic beliefs. I must achieve to be loved. Showing my needs is dangerous or selfish.
These deeply embedded beliefs form the foundation of a destructive superego that, in adulthood, drives us to chronically ignore our own limits. We tend to view the symptoms, the fatigue, the pain, as an enemy to be fought. But what if we saw them as a kind of wisdom? The body is not the enemy, it's the messenger. The collapse is not a sign of weakness, it's the most intelligent response of an overwhelmed system. It's the emergency brake the organism pulls when the psyche has ignored every earlier warning. The symptoms force us into what we would never have allowed ourselves, to stop. They push us inward, to reconnect with ourselves after having lost that connection in constant functioning. In this light, the collapse is not the end, it's a radical invitation to change. So how do we break the spiral? The key is this. The goal is not to fix our ability to function, to get back to normal. That would be like repainting a car with a broken engine. The true goal is to disempower the tyrannical superego and return to our authentic self. Modern therapy offers powerful approaches. Polyvagal-informed work. Learn to consciously regulate your nervous system. Through breath, gentle movement, or noticing cues of safety in the present moment, you can help your ventral vagal system come back online, restoring a sense of connection and calm. Internal family systems, IFS. Developed by Richard Schwartz, this model sees the superego not as the enemy, but as a protective manager part acting out of good intentions, to shield us from old pain. Instead of fighting it, we enter a compassionate dialogue. What are you trying to protect me from? The goal is to give leadership back to the self, the wise, compassionate core we all have inside. Somatic therapies like somatic experiencing. These help release stored survival energy from the nervous system without needing to relive trauma mentally. Mindfulness and radical self-compassion. Learn to notice the inner critic and respond not with obedience or shame, but with kindness and understanding. It's about fundamentally transforming our relationship with ourselves. In summary, chronic exhaustion is not weakness. It is, in many cases, the final expression of a misguided strength. It is the moment the body makes a decision we never gave ourselves permission to make. On a deeper level, these illnesses are also symptoms of our time. The philosopher Byung-Chul Han describes our modern world as a fatigue society. Unlike earlier disciplinary societies, we are no longer oppressed by external authorities. Instead, we exploit ourselves. Driven by the imperative of self-optimization, we become our own slave driver.
We are, as Han writes, master and slave in one person. Burnout is the collapse of this self-exploiting self. Healing begins the moment we find the courage to stop obeying that inner and outer demand to perform. It begins when our true self, silent for so long, is finally allowed to speak again.